Good morning, student, and welcome back to the second part of our lecture on the module optical detector. So, as I said, optical detector plays a very important role in the optical receiver, and it's very important to learn about the different optical detectors. So, if you recall, in the previous lecture, we have almost finished up to the understanding of the selection criteria of the photodetectors, the operating principle, and the optical absorption and corresponding optical generation that takes place in a photodetector. And I think I remember we had just started defining the different performance parameters for the detectors. So if I recall, I remember I had done till the definition of responsivity. So just a brief revision of these two definitions, quantum efficiency. So quantum efficiency basically defines how efficiently a photodetector converts the photocarriers from the photons that falls onto it. So we have defined it as eta. Remember the symbol eta, and that is the ratio of number of electrons which are collected out of the falling photons. And the unit for efficiency, of course, there is no unit; it is unitless. And as I said, it is expressed in the percentage at the specific operating wavelength. But as you see in this expression for quantum efficiency, it doesn't involve the expression for photon energy or wavelength. So we require a more realistic expression that includes all these parameters. Hence, student, we define the another figure of merit, that is the responsivity. So responsivity, as you can see, is defined as the ratio of the photocurrent to the falling photons power P naught. And hence, now here you can see this is somewhat like the ratio of the output to the input. So responsivity sometimes is said to be the transfer characteristic for a photodiode. So let's move on with the further detailed expression for the responsivity that includes the quantum efficiency as well. So as from the definition of quantum efficiency, we know it is the ratio of Re to Rp. So I can write the expression for Rp in terms of the photon power and the photon energy. So Rp is expressed now as P naught upon the photon energy that can further be written as P naught upon Hf, since E is equal to Hf. Now the electron rate I can rearrange in the expression for quantum efficiency and can write it as eta into Rp. And substituting the expression for the photon rate, I can get the new expression for electron rate as eta into P naught upon Hf. Now from this expression, the number of electrons, if I want to calculate the photocurrent, very simple. I just need to multiply it by a charge on one electron. Hence, we get the expression for the output photocurrent. And now, from the previous slide, we know the expression for the responsivity, which is IP upon P naught. Hence, by rearranging the terms in this equation, I can now get a second expression for the responsivity, and that is eta E into HF. And student, remember this is a very useful relationship for responsivity because it relates now all the parameters, that is the operating frequency, the quantum efficiency. The same expression can further be expressed in terms of the wavelength of the incident light by knowing the relation between frequency and wavelength, that is F equals to C by lambda. And hence I get an alternate expression for responsivity, that is eta into E into lambda upon HC. So you have to understand certain facts. The responsivity is dependent on what? As I said, responsivity is transfer characteristics. So how much I get the output for the falling input. So you can see from the right hand side expression, it increases linearly with the for the given quantum efficiency and increasing operating wavelength of that device. The other parameters like electron charge, H and C are constant, universal constant. So let's have a look at the responsivity plots considering this fact. So you can see in the left hand side plot, we have a responsivity plot with the operating wavelength for an ideal photodiode. So you can see in the ideal photodiode with respect to the theoretical expression, yes, it should increase linearly. But at the same time, if you will look at the responsivity plot for a typical practical photodiode, we find some not the similar behavior. What is happening at the start with the increasing wavelength? Yes, it is increasing linearly, but we can see after a certain time it starts falling down and it rolls down to zero and becomes almost negligible after a particular frequency. This frequency, student, is nothing but the cutoff frequency which we studied earlier. And this cutoff frequency, we remember, defines the absorbance for that particular material, because after this particular energy, no more photons will be absorbed in that particular material, and hence no photocurrent will be generated, and hence the responsivity goes zero. So this is a fact for having such responsivity plot in the practical photodiode. The right-hand side plot shows the comparison of the responsivities with respect to the quantum efficiencies for three practical photodiodes which are made of the three materials silicon, germanium, indium gallium arsenide. So if you observe at the lower wavelength, that is from the range zero point 0.7 to 1.1 nanometer, in the silicon made photodiode, we can see at a quite high quantum efficiency 90%, the responsivity reaches maximum up to zero point 0.6. Now, if you see at the higher wavelength ranges, like for example, in the germanium made photodiode, we get a responsivity that is quite low than this, but the operating wavelength high and also the reduced quantum efficiency. This is because of the particular characteristic of germanium material. But if I want to have a high quantum efficiency as well as high responsivity, I mean the largest spectral responsivity, now people thought over it and they found a solution onto it. Instead of using a single material, they use the alloys from the group 3 and 4 or 5 from the periodic table. And hence, in a newly made photodiode, which is made of the alloys indium gallium arsenide, it is observed we can get the higher responsivity at a higher quantum efficiency. So this is how one can compare the performance of various photodetectors based on this figure of merits like responsivity and the quantum efficiency. So student, these two figure of merits are very important for one to remember in case of photodiodes and in their performance analysis. So with this knowledge, let's move on to few numericals. So numerical one, it says that when so many photons, 3 into 10 raised to 11, each with a wavelength of zero point 0.8 micrometer, are incident on a photodiode, on average 1.2 into 10 raised to 11 electrons are collected at the terminals of the device, determine the quantum efficiency and responsivity of the photodiode at 0.85 micrometer. So first you list down what is the data provided. So you have been provided with the number of photons, the operating wavelength, and the number of electrons which are generated or collected across this device. And you have been asked to calculate the quantum efficiency and the responsivity at this operating wavelength, wherein these are the constant values for the constant you have to use into your calculation. So here you will have to use the expression that is R into eta into E into lambda upon AC. But again, the quantum efficiency is also not provided. So what you have to do, first you have to calculate the quantum efficiency using the equation RE upon RP. So quantum efficiency, if you substitute, you will get it to be zero point 0.4. And as I said, it is generally expressed in percentage. So this is how you are going to write your final answer. The quantum efficiency of this photodiode at 0.85 operating wavelength is 40%. Now you can easily calculate the responsivity by putting all these values and the constant values, and it comes out to be 0.274 amperes per watt. So, and you have, as I said, you will write your final answer in this format. Let's move on a second numerical. A photodiode has a quantum efficiency of 65%. When photons of energy 1.5 into 10 raised to minus 19 joules are incident upon it, at what wavelength is the photodiode operating? Calculate the incident optical power required to obtain a photocurrent of 2.5 microampere when the photodiode is operating as described above. Now think onto it. What is given and what's being asked to calculate. So here quantum efficiency is provided, photon energy is provided. Now first you have to calculate the wavelength. How will you calculate the wavelength? Is there any relation between the wavelength and the energy of the photon? Recall it. Yes, we have E equal to HF. So by using this relationship, I can easily get the operating wavelength, and that comes out to be 1.32 micrometers. And now it becomes very easy for you to get the responsivity by putting these values. And so student responsivity comes out to be 0.694 amperes per watt. And the output power also can be calculated using this equation. There is a small multiple choice question. Determine the responsivity of optical power of zero point 0.4 microwatt and the photocurrent of 0.294 microamperes. Isn't it easy? R equals to IP upon P naught. So use it, substitute it, and tell me the correct option. And yes, you are right. The option is A, wherein we applied this equation. Another MCQ. The quantum efficiency of photodiode is 40% with wavelength provided as determine the responsivity of the photodiode. Your quantum efficiency provided, your operating wavelength. You will use the equation for the responsivity eta into E into lambda upon SC, substitute all values and get your answer. So option C is the right answer. The responsivity of photodiode is 0.294 at a operating wavelength 0.9 micrometer. Determine quantum efficiency. So how will you deal with it? Again, you have to use the expression for responsivity, substitute it, rearrange it for the quantum efficiency, and you get it to be 0.405. Sorry, the unit is not ampere per watt, it is just 0.405. So answer A is right answer. Next numerical. Determine the wavelength of photodiode having quantum efficiency of 40% and responsivity of 0.304 amperes per watt. So what do you say? Which option is right? Correct. Option D. Again, based on the same expression, we can get it. Determine the energy of photons incident on a photodiode if it operates at the wavelength of 1.36 micrometer. So you have to use the expression that is E equal to hc upon lambda, and you can easily calculate the wavelength and that energy, and that comes out to be 1.46 into 10 raised to minus 19 joules, and hence student, our option number B is right. Let's move on to the next figure of merit, and it's the dark current. Now what do you mean by dark current? Understand, this is a photodiode. Wherein we learn that on illumination, photogeneration will, on absorption, photogeneration will take place inside the photodiode, and hence it will start creating or generating the current. Now imagine what if no illumination is there. Okay, we are not illuminating a light on this photodiode. Will there be no current in the photodiode in such case? So after lots of experimentation, the researchers or the people working in this area observed that under no illumination condition, certain current flows, and hence they term this current as dark current. And this is a very small electric current that flows in the photodiode when no photons are entering into the device. It consists of charges generated in the detector when no outside radiation is entering in the detector. Sometimes you'll be remembering it from your EDC 1, EDC 2 learnings of these diodes and transistor, one term known as reverse bias leakage current. So sometimes the dark current is also referred to as reverse bias leakage current. As you know, photodiode is operated in reverse bias conditions. So physically, this dark current is due to the random generation of electrons and holes within the depletion region of the device, which are generated at the room temperature because of thermal energy. And hence, always we get certain dark current in a photodiode, and this dark current plays a major role in certain photodiodes when it comes to high speed applications of photodiodes. Now let's move on with our next topic, that is studying the two photodiodes which are widely used and are PIN and APD. But before I get started with the PIN photodiode, once again I want to get brushed up your this understanding on the operation of principle of photodiode. So as seen here in the left side diagram, we have a PN photodiode which is reverse bias as seen where negative bias is applied on P side and positive bias is applied on N side. And what happened that you know very well that under reverse bias across PN junction, a depletion region is created. And now when the external photons with their energy greater than the band gap of this particular PN photodiode fall onto it, what happens, the electron from the valence band jumps into the conduction band, so we get a photocarrier generated. Now with the external bias, a strong electric field is present across this depletion region, which sweeps these electrons or these holes towards the ends, which can be seen from the band diagram. So as you can see, after a photon is fall onto this across this depletion region, a process that is photogeneration is happened, and with the high electric field across this depletion region, immediately these photocarriers are moving towards the end, and this is how a photocurrent is generated. The right hand side diagram shows the more realistic and the actual fabricated structure for a PN diode. Generally, this is how the PN diodes are fabricated, and the photons falls on from either top or side. That depends on how we represent the structure. So with the external biasing, we can see here a high depletion region here, a depletion, wide depletion region is created and absorption takes place across it. Once after the absorption takes place, the photocarriers are generated and the carrier starts drifting or the diffusing across this region, and we across the outside circuit and we get the photocurrent. So this is the main idea behind the photo detection and the photo generation across a reverse bias PN junction. So here I want you all to make it very, very clear that photodiodes are always operated under reverse bias, wherein a large depletion region with high electric field across it is expected, so that upon optical absorption, photo generation will take place and photo carriers can be immediately collected in the external circuit and we get a high photocurrent. So remembering this working of the photodiode, now we will see the modifications which are done over the years into this photodiode to improve its characteristic. So before I move on to it, I would like to show you a typical characteristic of a PN photodiode. So as you observe here, student, here we have shown four characteristics. That is from you can see from uh, the illumination with the low intensity and then the increasing intensity. So obviously, if I'll increase the power of the following illumination, I expect the more photocurrent to be generated. And this trend can be observed from these top three traces. So we get higher current. One more thing I want you to understand here, how much current is generated generally across a photodiode. So you will see, student, the current generated, though it is increasing with the increasing optical intensity, is in the range of microamperes for the biasing conditions shown along the x-axis. So this current, which is too low, I cannot use it, or I'll have to process it further to be to make it useful in the practical applications. So people thought of what can be done in this original PN diode at structural level, either by making use of different materials with the different band gaps, so that the photocurrent which is generated across the device, it should be high. And hence this is how the evolution and the changes started taking place in the photodiode. And one more thing, the dark current which I was talking about, which is shown over here and can be seen, this dark current always present across such photodiodes under no illumination conditions. So dark current, you will notice the it is a very small current, maybe in the range of few microamperes. So this is what I wanted to tell you from this typical characteristic, that how the variation in the photocurrent takes place with the increasing optical power and the range of the current. So what is the solution? Now knowing the drawbacks of PN photodiode, that the depletion region is thin and wherein the maximum absorption takes place, hence to improve the quantum efficiency, that is uh, I wherein we wish to have the photo electrons which are generated is 1 to 1 for the following photons. So which is not possible in this normal simple PN photodiode because of, as I said, the thin depletion region and maybe some defects present across this diode. So in order to extend the region of carrier extraction, or in order to increase the depletion region, what we have to increase? We have to increase that intrinsic region between the P and N. So this can be done either by putting a I layer or by varying the doping concentration of P and N material, so that we can get control on the width of the depletion region. So before I explain the addition or adding the I region, let's have a small quiz. The electric field in the depletion region should be high. State whether the given statement is true or false. Electric field in the depletion region should be high in a photodiode. Think on to it. Recall, I had said after the absorption in the depletion region, photocarriers are generated, which have to be immediately separated and sweep across the depletion region towards the external end. And how it is being done? Yes, it is being done by having a strong electric field across the depletion region. So our answer is A. Let's move on now. The PN photodiode, which I said was basically modified from the original PN diode to improve its quantum efficiency. So in order to allow operation at longer wavelength where the light penetrates more deeply into the semiconductor material, a wider depletion region is necessary. To achieve this, the one way could be, what we can do, we can dope the N-type material light, so that what will happen, the depletion, we will get the extended depletion region towards this, and now I can treat this N region as I region as shown over here. Basically this is P region and N region, but now being this region is lightly doped, and from the semiconductor basics we know, with the light doping the depletion region no more remains symmetric, and it becomes asymmetric and more extended towards the lightly doped region. So what we get, the extended depletion region. And now I can treat this region not as N region but I region. And on other end, what we can do, we can use a highly doped N material which will act as a here contact and immediately collect the generated photocarriers. So with this modification in our normal PN diode, we get a new photodiode which is known as PIN or capital PIN. These are the two abbreviations which are used to represent this photodiode, and then people study it further and observe its characteristic, whether it really gives the improvement on PN photodiode or not. So let's see how the performance gets increased because of increasing the depletion region by introducing the I region in the photodiode. So here, as I said, depletion region is extended across the intrinsic or lightly doped layers, and therefore more photocarriers can be created, which will contribute in the increased photocurrent. The PN photodiode can be realized as an homojunction or heterojunction that will depend on which material I am using for implementing my P region or N region. And there is only an interest in detecting if there is only an interest in detecting the blue or green light, the eye layer can be kept short. So the thickness of this eye layer will define the sensitivity and the operating wavelength of this particular diode. And hence students, just by introducing one simple over here modification or change, I can make lots of variation into this diode and can make it useful over a wide range of operating frequencies. So maybe from first window to the third operating window of the photodiodes. And this particular diagram represents the symbol for this PN photodiode and the detailed symbol with the different layers which are used. This is a symbolic representation, and the conventional structures looks more like this. So when actually it comes to the fabrication takes place. You would have learned, I think, I don't know whether in EDC1 or your CMOS, if you would have opted that elective, that the semiconductor devices are fabricated by depositing layers, and there are various processes of fabrications. So this is one typical structure that represents here the P substrate, I region, N substrate, and a window with the anti-reflection coating present onto it, and the external contacts taken out for connecting the external biasing voltage, and these photons can be eliminated across this window provided, so that the photons will get absorbed, and photocarriers will be generated across the I region. You will observe that this substrate thickness is quite low compared to the thickness of eye region. So what will happen, the maximum absorption will take place across this eye region, and we can get the increased photo absorption and hence the photocurrent. There is one more structure which was proposed by the researchers, and this is the side structure. So you will see that the metal contact on top and bottom, these are the layered here regions, P plus, I region, N plus region, and the anti-reflection coating on two sides, and the elimination is here going from the side direction, that is the left side direction, and hence now the absorption will take place. If you compare these two structure, why people invented such two various structures? So here itself you can compare these two structures. In the top structure, the falling photons have to cross this N substrate to reach to N region, and we know the absorption coefficient varies exponentially negatively with respect to the direction of propagation. But here what is happening? The falling photons can directly enter into the eye region, and hence student maximum absorption will be possible and increase photocurrent. So this is how, by playing at the doping level, the material level, the structural changes, people have done lots of experimentation to improve these photodiodes working and the performance. I hope you understood the what is PIN photodiode, how we can introduction of intrinsic region, we here get increased absorption and incremented photocurrent, which was our objective. And this can be better understood with the energy band diagram across this PIN photodiode. So we'll observe here the because of the introduction of I region, we get an increased depletion region, and hence we here get the more absorption and the increased photocurrent. There is one more structure I would like to introduce to you, which is a planar indium gallium arsenide PIN photodiode. So let's see what is it. Students, it's being observed that the PIN photodiode, which are made up of a single material, that is germanium or silicon, okay, that's their operating wavelength is small as compared to the this particular photodiode. And the another problem is what the dark current is quite high. It is 100 nanoamperes at this particular temperature, which may increase up to 1 microampere, and which is quite comparable to the photocurrent. So people further modified this PN photodiode by introducing the combination or the alloys of the materials from this group 3 and 5. So this is one of the example wherein they use the materials such as indium gallium arsenide with this proportion, and they form a alloy, and they created this detector wherein they observed that the wavelength, now the operating wavelength, can reach up to 1.67 micrometer. Here it shows the that planar structure which is implemented through epitaxial growth by layering, by putting several layers on one to one. So you can see the lower layer aluminum for the contact, then indium phosphide that acts as a substrate, then there is a buffer layer, then the actual here are intrinsic layer, and the top anti-reflecting layer, and we have the contact. And across this I region, which the n-type indium gallium arsenide, the photo absorption will take place and photocurrent will be generated, which is explained from this following band diagram. So we observe here this forms the eye region between our this substrate and the top layer, and hence we get wider band gap and increased photocurrent. So this is how the photodiodes are being evolved over the decades, over the years, and today we have very sophisticated photodiodes which are made up of organic, inorganic materials, maybe such heterostructure, or maybe with the different geometry by changing the geometry of the photodiodes. Now, here is a small comparison of the this particular photodiodes over the three operating optical windows, that is a short wave band, medium wave band, long wave band. So you can look at it and read it and know it how by making use of various materials or the alloys, the same PN photodiode can be made useful or workable in the required optical window. Here for the additional information, I have brought a comparative chart of the these three PIN photodiodes, silicon, germanium, indium, gallium arsenide, based on the various performance parameters. So you can compare based on the operating wavelength, and as expected, the indium gallium arsenide, the operating wavelength range is broader compared to silicon germanium. Even the responsivity, the quantum efficiency, the dark current, the rise time, the bandwidth, and the biasing voltages. So you will see in all respect the performances in PN photodiode made up of indium gallium arsenide is much better than silicon and germanium. Now, what all these photodiodes will learn, the simple PN photodiode or PIN photodiode, we understood that after the photons is absorbed, the corresponding electron hole pairs are created and photocurrent starts flowing. But going ahead, people thought of by making use of some active electronics component like we learn in transistor, or you would have learned the APD avalanche photodiode, wherein some inherent intrinsic gain mechanism is present. As you know, in a transistor, depending on my biasing condition, I can amplify the output voltage. So this is how, if I now use such active components in the photodiodes, along with the photo generation, I can also introduce the photo amplification, I mean the photocurrent amplification, and I can get increased photocurrent. As I explained you, the photocurrents which are generated in such photodiodes are very low. And to operate the external circuit, I require the larger power than it. So this is I think this is another modification into the photodiode, wherein people have used the internal photo amplification or photo gain mechanism. They incorporated it into the photodiode, and they tried to get the increased photocurrent from the photodiode. So in this category, I already explained you at the start, we have the phototransistor, photomultipliers. But as our syllabus is restricted only up to photodiodes, and in photodiode range, we have one photodiode with the internal gain mechanism, and that is the avalanche photodiode. So, as I said, APD has an internal gain which is obtained by, and how it is obtained over here in APD, by increasing or by having very high electric field that further energizes, which increases the kinetic energy of this photo generated electrons, so that these highly energized photoelectrons will ionize the internal atoms when they will collide with them and create the more electrons through the collision, and these newly created electrons and holes are will be further accelerated by the high electric field, and this is how this mechanism goes on continuing, and we call it as the impact ionization, and this phenomena is termed as the avalanche effect in the semiconductor devices. So by making use of this phenomena of impact ionization in avalanche photodiode, we here get a now new modified photodiode which is called as avalanche photodiode. So as I said over here, now in this typical photodiode, we observe two regions. Now in region 1, I'll show you once again. In region 1, which is represented as pi region, the electron hole pair will be generated. And in the region 2, the device, the carriers are accelerated, and wherein the impact ionization will take place, and we will get the internal multiplication process, and hence the increased photocurrent. So this is how, students, you can now compare from simple PN diode. It was changed to PIN diode. Now by introducing one more field, by adding one highly doped layer, and by increasing the external biasing, here we got the internal amplification mechanism and increase in the photocurrent. So this particular slide shows us the electric field across these different layers. So as I explained you in the previous slide, we have N plus layer, P layer, pi layer, P plus substrate layer. So which are shown here now horizontally, N plus, P, pi and P plus. And with the external biasing, the electric field variation is observed. So as seen over here, the electric field is very high across this region, and it is quite constant across the depletion region. And as I explained over here, the region 1 is the absorption region where photoelectrons are created, and region 2 is the avalanche region. How? Now, this is a depletion region. So, when the illumination will fall, the photocarriers will be generated over here, and the generated photocarriers, when will try to move towards the end side, they will cross on this side across the avalanche region. But now, across this region, we observe that the electric field is very high comparatively this region. So what happened? The electrons gets accelerated and they collide with the atoms across this region and ionization takes place and more electrons are generated. And by maintaining the electric field, we can accelerate these electrons further. And this is how the multiplication of electrons takes place and we get the increased photocurrent across this avalanche photodiode. So this is the working principle of this particular avalanche photodiode, which was basically designed to get the increased photocurrent from the photodiode. And this is the explanation for that particular photodiode, which you can go through it. Let's have a small MCQ onto it. The phenomena leading to avalanche breakdown in reverse bias diode is known as. So what is it? Correct. Impact ionization. And it's the main operating principle of the avalanche photodiode. So here I would like you to categorize the photodiodes which we learn. Those are PN photodiode, PIN photodiode, and avalanche photodiode according to the this internal gain mechanism. So PN and PIN, no internal gain mechanism. APD has the internal gain mechanism. Let's have a small comparison now between PIN and APD. So PIN photodiode, APD photodiode. PIN doesn't have high intensity electric field region, and in APD, yes, this is the main basic operating principle of APD, that a high electric field is required. Then photocurrent generated can be written as IP equal to Q into NE, but here, because of internal gain mechanism, the same expression we get a additional factor in, that is the gain multiplying factor. The responsivity of PIN photodiode is limited. Responsivity of APD can have much larger values. Of course, here because of internal gain mechanism, I'll get increased photocurrent and responsivity will further increase. They exhibit lower noise levels. They exhibit higher noise level as compared to PIN due to impact ionization and photocurrent. Yeah, this is the drawback of APD photodiode. With the benefits, it it comes with certain cons, and that is the noise, internal noise. And this noise, as you would have also studied in digital communication, analog communication, are very critical considering the operation of any communication receiver. And APD being having larger internal noises, that's the reason are not used very widely in the practical applications. The last parameter, the response type of PIN is half that of APD. The response type of APD is almost double that of PI. It's again because of the high electric field present across it. The electrons, the generated photoelectrons gets separated very fast as compared to in the PIN photodiode. So this is how you can compare the working of these two photodiode and remember it. And for these particular topics, these are the books I have referred. So the book by God also, then the senior, but most of my references are from the senior, which is a very useful book, nicely illustrated concept through the proper diagrams. So I will recommend you all to refer the senior book for this particular topic. So, and this is a question bank which I have brought for you so that you can go through it and understand what type of the format of the questions and learn your topic from exam point of view. So these are the few more questions on the topic, and this is all I wanted to say about this particular photodiode. I hope you understood it and you will remember it and you will study accordingly for your final exam, and I wish you all the best for this particular topic. So here we have completed almost with the 50% units in this particular module. In the next lecture, I'll be taking the remaining units, that is on the optical receivers, their types and their analysis, that is the signal to noise ratio and bit error rate. So for time being, let's stop here and see you all in the next lecture. Bye.